in Indy with the O'Brien in the building, but it was able to catch an early flight back to OKC. First quarter was sort of back and forth, Jay, and then in the second, Indiana just turned it up on the defensive end.
Yeah, and look, the active hands is something you hear all the time in NBA huddles, and the activity that Indiana had and how that translated to offense was the difference in this basketball game.
Halliburton, we talked so much about his calf. He looked good, knocked down threes last night.
That's exactly what I was going to say here is you watch him moving up and down the floor, and all he had to do was make a pass. The ball never hits the floor as it goes 3 passes for the open 3.
That was Nesmith knocking one down to give the Pacers a 13-point lead. Here comes Halliburton with another of his threes. He had 14, Pacers up 17 points, and now defense going the other way. JWill, give me the slam.
Look at the pass. Look at the pass, and look at the finish.
We've played.
Are you not entertained?
We have played the international calls on this one all morning long, and there's no way to do them justice.
Finish.
The poster slam from Siakam, the no look from Halliburton. Pacers extend the lead to 20. You sort of knew it was done there. Yeah. Closing seconds of the half. Siakam would score 16 in this game. It's a 22-point halftime lead. But in a postseason where no lead has been saved, Jay, you thought maybe OKC would come out fighting in the third quarter. They came out very, very quiet.
I have to be honest. I was shocked that Dagnall went with a smaller lineup to start
Caruso in
the
for
third quarter
yep.
instead of staying with the bigger lineup, which gave them more continuity in the way they played.
This is the final seconds of the third quarter. Ben Shepherd will knock down a 3.
Can you have a dagger at the end of the third?
Well,
can that be a dagger
shot?
at
the half
and
in the third?
It made it a 30-point game. The Thunder starters sat out the fourth. Pacers had 6 players in double figures. Pacers force a game 7. Here was Halliburton with Lisa after the game.
It's the finals. It's the finals. Like, you know, all of us got to give everything we have. You know, I give everything I have for this group in this locker room. So just trying to come out here and play the best of my ability. My guys have had my back all year, and especially tonight, and that means the world to me.
The way I see it is we suck tonight. We have to learn the lessons. And we have one game for everything we've worked for, and so do they. And the better team Sunday will win.
All right, we roll along. Keefe is up early, and UD is up with us from Indianapolis. So, UD, you were in the building. Give us, what did you sense from OKC? I expected them to win last night. Most people did. They were a pretty significant favorite last night. Did it feel like the moment maybe got to them? What did you see from the Thunder last night with a chance to win an NBA championship getting just blown out of the building?
It felt like they've been listening to the media the last couple of days. It felt like they've been listening to that they're the better team and that the series should be over and that Hallie's hurt. And you got to give a shout out to Tricky Rick. And once again, as players, we tend to over-exaggerate how injured we were, but the way Hallenberg played in that first half, the way he was pulling up from 3, getting downhill, making plays for other people, he seemed to be a little more healthier than they thought he would be. So if I'm in that OKC locker room, I'm definitely kicking myself, but not because we lost the game, but because of the effort. You know what I'm saying? We let them impose their will on us. They attacked us offensively and defensively and just took over the game, and that's not the way you definitely want to lose a game. So going into Game 7, Indiana has all the momentum right now, and I think there has to be a little bit of doubt creeping into OKC, and they showed some youth, and it was the first time that I think we've seen them not bounce back and we've shown their youth be a problem.
That's an interesting look. How about Markieff? You also picked, you picked Indiana last night, and Markieff, you did as well. What did you see last night that led to this very one-sided Game 6?
I just seen a whole lot of Indiana and a little bit of OKC, right? OKC started the game off with 10-2. Ever since then, I felt like they didn't attack, or they wasn't themselves, right? It was 34-33 going in. It was 34-33 going into the second half with 9 minutes left, and Indiana closed the half on a 30-9 run. OKC could never get back in the game, right? Like I said before, Indiana took care of the ball. They didn't turn the ball over. They got quality shots, and that paved the way for them to be able to blow OKC out and not have their starters play in the fourth quarter. And I think just being in the finals, that's not normal, man. That's kind of disrespectful for them to have been beaten like that in the Game 6 and not have to play your starters in the fourth quarter.
With a chance to win the championship, I mean, Jay, tell me, what did you see?
I mean, I saw ass whooping.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what we saw. I mean, UD, like we're gonna call a spade a spade. I mean, that's what we saw last night, and the energy wasn't matched by Oklahoma City that Indiana played with throughout the course of the game. And then I think the bigger point, and look, it's a part of the game, but the MVP of this league, the guy that we started having conversations about is he a Hall of Famer already before we get to a Game 7? If he's the scoring champ, if he's the regular season MVP, if they win a championship, if he's the finals MVP. He had 40% of their turnovers last night.
Yeah.
He had 8 turnovers and 2 assists. Okay, like that is a really big moment for him as he's maturing, UD, into the player that we know SGA is. This Game 7 is going to be defining.
Yes.
Because when he tries to get other people involved, that's what he needs to do. That's what he did in the Game 5, which led out to him having double-digit assists. But the way he impacts the game and him being sharp with the ball is going to be defining for his legacy in the Game 7.
You know, you called him Tricky Ricky. I think Rick Carlisle has been a master in this entire series, and Mark Dagnall has kind of shown also his inexperience, and you referenced it. The start to half, it's 22. And Greeny, you said it because we've seen it all playoffs. Was anybody turning the TV off 22 points down at the half? No, because you know the Thunder are just a team that can go on a run, get some turnovers, and now you're right back in the game. And you were wanting to see what adjustments are they going to make. The adjustment he made was to play smaller, put in Caruso. Disaster. They didn't score for 5 minutes to start the half. It was some of the worst basketball they played all season. And that right there, all of a sudden 22 turned to 28, and that felt like, okay, this thing now is not coming back. Like this game is already over, and it's midway through the third quarter. When you have a chance to win a championship, you come out of the half like that, that's on everybody, not just SGA. I think it's on the coaching as well. That is something they have to circle the wagons for the next 2 days and figure out how are they going to counter whatever Tricky Ricky does for Game 7, because on the road, the Pacers are a dangerous team. And if it's a close game, guys, who you trust in late? Tyrese Halliburton's already shown you that he can make those shots.
One in the NBA Finals was 9 years ago. There have only been 4 Game 7s in the last 35 years. The pressure is extraordinary here. How do you think that impacts these two teams, UD?
I think it impacts OKC negatively because the historical season that they have, the MVP, the finals MVP. But on the other side, I look at Indiana, I think this is how they've been living. They've been living in this chaos. They've been living under pressure. They've been living with the expectation that nobody expects them to win. So this is a situation that they've thrived in. They'll walk into that arena confident. Maybe the only people that believe that they can win is the Indiana Pacers and Coach Carlisle and their fans, but they'll walk in that arena confident. So I think Game 7 actually helps Indiana. They're more confident. They believe that they're the tougher team, that they got more grit, and that they can outlast, the OKC. But I think OKC is definitely going to come back and they're going to play better and they're going to be their best version. And I think we're going to get Game 7 where both teams bring their best version. We've seen one team impose their will and the other team break. We've seen the other team impose their will and the other team break. I think both teams are going to bring their best version. And like you said earlier, Alan, it's going to come down to the stars at the end, Tyrese Halliburton and SGA. One thing I will say is that Indiana's made an adjustment. SGA is not playing one-on-one basketball anymore. Anytime he comes off a pick and roll, that big has moved up. They've taken away that lane for him to get downhill. And on the sideline, they're pressuring him and blitzing him. And when he's going against a guard, they're keeping 2 on the ball, making him throw that ball back to Case and Wallace and those other guys getting a late contest. That is another trick, that is another X and O thing that Tricky Ricky has made that has helped impact them defensively.
Well, so follow up on that thought, though, UD. So what does that mean? What does SGA, because he has, I know he scored a lot of points in that Game 4, but he's had almost no assists. He had a very tough night last night, obviously. The turnover numbers are high. What's the key there? If Indiana does that, then he does what?
Well, I think you got to keep him out of that pick and roll on the sideline, because if you put him on that sideline, they're definitely going to trap him, and you use that sideline as an extra defender. In the middle, you can put him in the pick and roll, but they're putting 2 to the ball. So when you throw back, those guys like Aaron Wiggins and those guys like Case and Wallace, they got to make shots. I believe you bring the ball up the side and you just let him go to that ISO on the sideline, and where he can see everything. You get guys cutting down the middle. You get a guy cut, you spray, and you make a pass. But right now, SGA is not playing one-on-one, whether he's in the pick and roll or he's in that mid-post area.
Yeah, and look, I mean, J-Dub, he scored 40 points the other night. Last night, his plus-minus was minus 40. So life comes at you fast in the NBA Finals. OKC never loses back-to-back games. We've had that stat over and over and over again, Markieff, but this one felt different. Do the Pacers bring legitimate momentum on the road with them into Game 7 in a way that you think matters Sunday night?
Of course. Every game that they've played on the road, they've been in the game. Obviously, Game 2 was the only different game where they was almost getting blown out, right? Just because OKC just lost a close Game 1. Other than that, they've been playing well. The thing is the bench and the turnovers. OKC bench plays so much better when they're at home. They're so much looser. They're scoring a point. They're scoring the ball. It's the same thing for Indiana. When they're on the road, their guys are not playing as well as confident scoring the basketball, right? So it's an accumulation of both things. What bench are we going to get in the game? Is Indiana going to take care of the ball? Is OKC going to score points on turnovers? These are things that have to happen for both of these teams to win.
Jay, you're going to be leaving us shortly here to go over and do First Take in a couple of minutes. So what will you be watching early in Game 7? What will decide it?
My thing is, it's going to come down late to Game 7, and I'm going to give you a throwback line, and I wrote it down because my man Max Kellerman said it, and I give him a shout out for what he said. I mean, look, open shop, face of the universe on the line. The Martians have the death beam pointed at Earth. I'm taking Hallie down the stretch, man. To make a shot in this playoffs, with what the body of work that I've seen him in critical moments.
So if the game comes down
to that, I mean, look, you gave the reference about NBA Finals coming down to single-digit wins over the history of that,
in
right?
Game 7s, yes.
So if we get to a Game 7, it's a critical moment. You ask the question, who are you going to trust more, Hallie or SGA? With the body of work I've seen, what the Hallie all the way.
Confidence comes from demonstrated performance, and you saw it in Game 1. Stole the game.
Does it get tighter at home too, UD? I mean, you've been in these huge games all those many times, you know, those Miami teams and everything else. Sometimes it feels like the pressure, if the game is close, like if OKC if they clamp down defensively and the game gets one-sided, that's one thing. But if this game is there to be decided in the fourth quarter, sometimes it feels like the energy of the home crowd in the building can work against you. How about that, the pressure on OKC in this Game 7?
I definitely think if the game gets close, it can definitely tighten up OKC a little bit because I look at what Indiana's been able to do with Rick Carlisle. He's been able to settle those guys. He's been able to get those guys in sets. He's been able to get those guys comfortable in situations. So if it comes down close, I'm giving the advantage to Indiana, but not just because of the players, because of Rick Carlisle and that coaching staff and guys that have been there before. When you look over in Thunder, yes, they have one guy that's won a championship, but it's one guy that won a championship in the bubble. There's a completely different situation when you have a crowd out there, you have people cheering, you know, everybody's going crazy. And I'm not taking nothing away from that ring that Caruso got. A ring is a ring, and the bubble was the purest form of basketball. But I will say, I would never do that.
He's mad. Oh, Keith.
You took my ring. I lost to y'all. You took my ring.
The reality is, obviously, there was no home court advantage or disadvantage in that scenario. Look, I always go back to my days covering the Bulls. Phil Jackson always said he would much rather play a big game on the road.
NBA